everybody, it's Mike Young, lifestyle nutritionist with aPlantBasedDiet.org. Welcome to chapter 90 of my book on comfort zone and challenge. These two are very much related, and these kind of touch on other topics that I've talked about earlier in the book. So you may want to go back and refresh with some of the earlier chapters. Some of the earliest chapters actually deal with similar concepts, but not exactly. That's why I need to make a separate chapter on this. I've got some notes in front of me, so I want to go off of these as well. The whole idea with this chapter is, for longevity, for being a regular habit. The idea is, of course, I know not everyone's the same. I know not everyone's at the same level. I'm not expecting anyone to be, I don't know, the best in the world at whatever it is that they feel their life purpose is. I had a chapter on that, so go back and check that. Whatever their goals are, I had a chapter on that. Go back and check those. I don't expect it to be like the best ever. I just expect it to be the best version of you, whatever that means. So the idea in this chapter is you have to constantly be pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone and challenging yourself. Otherwise, you're not going to grow. It's just kind of like plants. The body is, the plants, as we talked about, so much of this book about living to 150 and the secrets to longevity have to do with plants and eating plants and learning how to grow the plants right and consume them in the correct way without destroying all their benefits. Same thing is true with just you in general. And I'm not talking about food here. It's one of the few chapters when I'm really not talking about it, although this could also apply to challenging yourself to eat better. It could, but it could also apply and should apply to anything and everything else going on in your life. Because I don't expect all of us to just focus our entire lives around the longevity habits and the food. You also need to do whatever it is you think your purpose in life is. So you need to do it the best you can. So, all right, so you're either, some of the points here I want to make that is that, of course, if you're not challenging yourself, you're not going to grow. And you're either growing or you're getting worse all the time. Nobody stays the same. You need to understand that concept, all right? There's no way you're staying the same. And if you feel like you are, I'm telling you what's going on right now is you're getting worse at anything and probably everything. You're just backsliding. This is how people tend to get into this position of becoming complacent, resting on their laurels. You don't even realize it. It's like this, it's not a vegan example, but the frog in boiling water, let's just pretend it's something else. You just don't notice it until it's too late. All right. I can give so many examples of this in people's personal lives. I'm sure, people who have been married and they just, after a while, they just don't do anything anymore. Like they've totally given up on everything. I've seen that so many times. All right. And when you give up, it's not like you're just staying the same. Things are going to get worse. You're just going in a downward spiral. So that's what those types of relationships. I had a chapter just a little while ago about relationships, but it also applies to other things in your life. Let's say I grew up in the 70s and 80s. I remember the U.S. auto industry during the time that I was alive, I'd say in the 70s and 80s, had just given up. They just stopped innovating. In business, I'd say innovation is what it is. You can use the term of innovation in your personal life as well. But what happened to them? They just all went almost bankrupt. The government had to bail them out. I think we may be going through a similar thing with the auto industry, including all the legacy manufacturers, since they failed to pivot and recognize what was going on with electric vehicles until it's too late. Now they're all saying they're discontinuing their development of ICE or internal combustion engines through their engineering, but it may be too late. We'll see how that plays out. Don't let your life become like that. That is, hopefully, I'm saying this example so that you can draw some parallels there, because there's definitely some things, some concepts here that should be relatable by that example. Now, another thing I want to mention is that everything you want is outside of your comfort zone. Your comfort zone, a lot of people, some people, I've mentioned this earlier in the book, I'll say it again. They mention, well, that's not me. It's not my personality. I don't do that. And a lot of times, and most of the time, actually, I'd say that was what I would call the tomb of personality. People's lives are completely entombed into what their vision is of their own personality, and they will never challenge themselves or get out of this personality. Some people don't fail to even recognize it's a comfort zone, but it's really the same thing. You need to get out there, because everything you really want, and like I said, we're all at different levels, but the things that it's common no matter what your level of talent or abilities or intelligence or whatever you want to call it, you've got to get out. You got to just push yourself out. You have the ability to do that, or get somebody else to do it for you and hold you outside of there, because that's where all of your living takes place. And when you're not doing that, life becomes also very, rote, very monotonous, and very boring, I would say. I'm not saying that you need to constantly be in a state of fear, because some people are so anxious and anxiety ridden that they can't get out there because of their anxiety. If you have anxiety, of course, you're just living in the future, worried about things that may not happen and probably won't happen at all. Get help. Get help from somebody. Watch videos on YouTube that deal with anxiety. There's plenty of them out there. And then you'll be ready to push yourself outside of your comfort zone. And even if you're depressed, same thing. You're living in the past. Get help. Get yourself straight. Get in balance. And then start moving forward. All right, let's say continuous. So we want a continuous state of improvement, and we want you to be able to embrace change. It's not to say that your life's in chaos all the time, because, and it's hard to say if your life is like that or not, because some people are so wanting to be in that comfort zone all the time that they truly believe that staying outside of their comfort zone is going to produce chaos, and they're going to feel like everything's out of control, and they're literally going to have a nervous breakdown. I think that if that's the case with somebody or you, and it may be the reason why some people never get out of their comfort zone, because that's been their experience in the past. You need to work on your own psychology. I've got chapters in the book earlier about psychology. There's plenty of resources on the internet about psychology, or you can go see somebody. Talk therapy would be really good for that. I don't think you need anything other than that. It's just a matter of considering things in a way you hadn't, and really forcing that growth, because you're not going to do it on your own. If you're somebody like that is so stuck inside your own comfort zone, it doesn't mean that's who you are and that that's the way you're going to be, and you're never going to. No, that's just excuses. You've decided that you're not going to grow. But like I said, this chapter is, I'm trying to describe to you and convince you that you have to grow. That's part of living well. That's part of longevity as well. And I'm sure you can come up with an example of somebody that never did anything or never grew or whatever, and they still lived to 95. Great. That's not normal. That's an outlier. So I'm just talking about the general population and what you really need to do if you want to have a life that you really enjoy. And I know if you're anxiety filled, you're like, what are you talking about? I'm scared to death. Go work on your psychology. It's mind work. It's habit building in your own mind, your own thoughts. I've mentioned some of this stuff earlier in the book. This is within your control. I don't care where you are. I know everybody's different. I know you're not going to be the same or as great as this person, whatever. I'm not trying to get you to be as great as that person. I'm just trying to get you to be on a growth path, a growth mindset, no matter where you are, so that you enjoy life better, instead of you thinking you're just wasting your entire life, because that's what happens with these people that get into these thought patterns. You truly believe you're just wasting your life and there's no reason for you to be here. And do you really think that's conducive to living long? No, it's not. All right, so don't be closed-minded. Challenge people to grow. Don't make life too easy, not only for yourself, or if you're responsible for children or other people, especially for them. Do not make their life too easy. When you do that for somebody, you are handicapping them, because that becomes their comfort zone, and you are romancing that. You're giving them some romantic feelings about not having to do anything and not having to challenge yourself and things, just having some, I don't know, just a certain level, and that's it, you're done. But then you opt out of the growth mindset, and not to say that you don't have to have much. I'm not saying you have to acquire. This is not about acquiring material things. This is not about being anything more than independently wealthy. I think that's the goal for everyone. You don't need to be a billionaire or trillionaire or anything like that. Just enough so that you really enjoy life. That's it. But you've got to have a growth mindset for that. Do not make people's lives too easy, especially kids, because if you're watching or listening to this book, you know this is difficult. And one of the reasons it's difficult is because you weren't taught this when you were growing up. And because you weren't taught this when you were growing up, whoever was responsible for you, when you look back at it, made your life too damn easy. That's why you're stuck in this rut. So don't do that to the next generation. I've talked about this before in other chapters about your legacy. Don't let that be your legacy, about what people are going to remember about you, is that it's very pleasant to be around them. They never required anything of me, and therefore I really didn't do much. The longer you go out with that, you realize nothing happens. nothing happens at all. Yes, you should absolutely be nice to people. You should treat people well, but you should also have some goals of your own, some, whatever they want to be, whatever you make them, and you should have some kind of purpose for being alive. And that's all going to require you to be out of your comfort zone to achieve those things, whatever they happen to be. And the last point, I've mentioned this before in other chapters as well, is when you know better, you do better. Hopefully you have learned something, if you didn't before watching this chapter, that you know something now that you didn't know before you started. And now that you do, if that's true, and if you do, let me know in the comments. Just say, yes, I know better now. I've got to, kind of push myself. And a lot of this is just like, if you consider, I'll give you an example of being outside your comfort zone. Is kind of like being near a fire or sticking a body part in the fire. Okay. It's painful. I know it doesn't feel right. It feels like you're doing something wrong, and that's not an excuse to go back. Because like I said, you will never be able to achieve what you want to do in your own life, you out there, if you avoid the fire. So you're almost like taking your own foot, you're putting it in this fire, which is very painful, and you're just holding it there. That's a skill. You can develop that, just like I mentioned in chapter 4, how I'm an introvert, and you can develop skills that are more extroverted if you work at it. Same thing with this. And the basic idea is it's going to feel like you're holding your own foot to the flames, okay? Because you're outside of your reality, your personality, whatever you want to call it, your comfort zone. But you will be so thankful in the future, because this is what this book is about, is having a future. You will have one, and you'll be very thankful that you did that. And that's what it is. It's a lot of times it's a leap of faith. It just feels so uncomfortable, but you've got to do your homework on whatever it is that you're going to get out of your comfort zone on. I'm not saying just go crazy, just go nuts, and just throw caution to the wind and don't worry about anything. Just anything's possible. Just go out and jump out of an airplane without a parachute type of thing. No, I'm not saying that. Don't do that. You got to be very mindful. You have to, all these chapters in the book work together. You really have to be convinced of what you're doing. You have to study, you do your homework, and then you begin this process. And once you get along this process, you will find that you have achieved a lot. And you won't achieve everything. I know. And I should go back to the chapter on goals. If you want to learn about that, you should really only be achieving like maybe 3 out of 5 of your goals. It's a little more than half or something like that, 60%. Otherwise, the goals are either too easy or too hard. But again, this is tailored for you. I'm not expecting you to do anything where you are the world's best at this and whatever, and just make it feel like you're never, I don't know. It's really more people with anxiety that feel like they can never have any peace, I guess. I don't know, because that's more of an anxiety thing, like I said, because there's going to be a lot of times when it's not a total peace, but in order for you to arrive at peace in your life, you're going to have to go through a lot of things that you're not going to necessarily want to do, but you've convinced yourself through all this planning, goal setting, life purpose, etc., that you need to do these things. You may not do them all well. You may do some of them wrong. You're going to learn from your mistakes, and hopefully you're going to make some mistakes, because nobody's perfect. I expect everyone to make these mistakes, but you just learn from them and you keep going. So let me know in the comments how you've done with life, how this concept has worked for you in your life, how you're doing on it, what you know about others, if you've been able to help others. It's very difficult. Share this chapter with other people if you feel that can be beneficial to them. And of course, give me a like if you got some kind of value out of it. And of course, also subscribe to the channel. We'll see you in the next chapter. Bye-bye.